This week, we discuss people not wearing masks, writing fiction, anime, and how to make your own soda. Also, we learn how the space Nazis dropped a satellite on Australia. So, gather around the internet campfire, everyone, because it's episode 3 of Let's Regroup. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Regroup, the podcast where we get off topic, but we'll get there eventually. I'm your host, Casey, and I have two guests with me, returning for the third year in a row. The third time in a row is Rowles.
Smoke pan every day.
Smoke pan every day. And we also have the lovely Jess.
Hello.
Welcome, friendos.
Hey.
Hello.
So, last week I said that circumstances required for me to not work anymore. This is now week 2 of that happening, and I've never been happier to talk to other people. It's so sad, but this makes my week. This and doing my D&D campaign, being able to talk to people outside of my house is great. So.
Oh yeah, I mean you have to do it. It's like I have just submitted to have 3 days hopefully off starting in August, so I can. My whole plan is to drop off my Jeep for inspection then, because I know it needs some work done. So it's here you have 5 whole days to do it.
Right.
Before I need it back, but I'm just dreading those 3 days. I'm going to be, if that does take that long, I'm going to be again at my apartment with no vehicle. So it's
yeah, you're stuck there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. Most of my weeks have been, I only go out of the house once a week, and that's to go grocery shopping. It's terrible. The cabin fever right now is so incredibly real.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, how are you doing?
I mean, I'm alive. Quarantine is quarantine,
Yeah.
That's how it be. You gotta do it because you don't really have a choice. If you want to protect your fellow members of the human race, gotta do the responsible thing. Always wear your masks.
Yep. How's Illinois handling all of that? Because I know you're fairly close to Chicago. If close-ish.
As far as I've heard, I've heard a couple of places started opening and then closed back up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've done any major closings. All the businesses and stuff are still allowed to be open, but it's still illegal to go out without a mask and stuff. Yeah. So we're in kind of this weird middle limbo phase where it's not everything's perfectly quarantined, but also everything's not free to go do whatever,
Right. Yeah, we're pretty much the same spot right now over here. Basically, once everything opened up cautiously, the numbers started spiking, and just I think it was 2 days ago, the governor of Pennsylvania said, "All right, you have to wear a mask if you're going outside," and outside meaning in public.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of. Remember when I talked about the media on the first episode?
Oh God!
It's kind of
Michaela's gonna hear this, and it's no, you
no, this
don't.
No. Listen. I to clarify,
yeah,
it's no problem with people reporting the news. That's not the issue. But I've noticed all the major networks, like your ABC 27, Fox 40, the local news networks, they all shared it with that same headline. But really, when you look at the mandate that was issued, it's not that. It's when you're outside and you're unable to maintain the distance of 6 feet. So for any shopping, any groceries, anything, you should anyway. I've been wearing my mask anyway. It's just a safer thing to do.
Right.
But like people are all up in arms about it, like, oh well, we can't do like I can't do my running outside. No, you can. You can
You
run
can.
outside. Like
Yep.
you can do whatever. It's just I just of course it's always bumped up to the next level, so it has a lot of people asking those kind of questions. I understand why it might be like reported that way, but
Yeah.
it's just and I saw two things as well that from two different sources that the our bodies are amazing and our immune systems anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's already being shown to be developing of antibodies like within people who have the test done like to deal with corona. It's happening way quicker than expected.
Well, that's good.
So I'm it sucks, and I don't like the fact that like the governor has that much power.
Yeah.
But like that's been my whole issue with the decrees and stuff. Like I understand why.
Yeah.
But then of course it was all politicized, so that's
I think
like
that's a lot of the
everything else.
reason. I think that's a lot
Like
of the reason why people are acting the way they are is that they think
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
it's entirely a political thing when it's not.
There are people that are still sharing things. Fortunately, none of my friends online that I know
Right.
of that are still sharing things. It's like, I bet when November happens, this virus is magically gonna go away when Trump gets elected again. And I was like, okay, if you think so, you
Oh my.
you have a virologist here, so
There was.
I just hope it gets
okay.
treated. We're all going insane, but when this is all over, we're gonna look back at it and laugh. I bet.
Oh yeah. Like I mean that
maybe
that...
the real quarantine was the friends we made along the way.
And that's what this podcast is all about.
Yes, sir.
No, that's absolutely how it was with like now these were much more minor cases than this, but like when like the bird flu in 2006 and the swine flu in 2009 and then Ebola and the Zika virus, like all of those people were up in arms at the time, and then after it was over they were like, oh, well, I guess that wasn't so bad.
Oh, also one thing I forgot to say there with the you said there's a spike in cases.
Mm-hmm.
That's especially true of the places like Texas, Florida,
Oh yeah,
the Carolina, every beach place basically has had an increase in cases because people want to go to the beach mysteriously in the middle of a viral outbreak. Like I still don't have trouble wrapping my head around that.
But Rowles, it's summer. We gotta go to the beach. That's what you do.
Is it? But the death rate is steadily decreasing everywhere. That I read. So it's like everything's getting better. It's just going to be a slow improvement. It's not going to be
Yeah, just got to be patient.
The finger snap that everybody wants. This isn't we're not Thanos. We can't just make it better.
Yeah,
I read somewhere, it was, I don't even remember what it was, but might have been a Twitter post where somebody was saying like, watch as soon as coronavirus has all died down and stuff, that the U.S. politicians and like news sources are going to be like praising all the politicians for being like, the U.S. was like the first nation to reach herd immunity. And, like, how do we get that herd immunity? By everyone fucking dying.
I mean, that was what, I think it was Sweden, who was like, no, we're not going to do any quarantining, because if you just have everybody out at once, everybody will get immune to it. Like, no, it's not how that works. You have to have a vaccine or at least some sort of treatment for herd immunity to take place.
And like you can also like be a carrier as well without like showing any symptoms, because like it takes 2 weeks for you to start showing symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So like you could have it like in you or on you, like something like, since it travels through the air so readily, it could like get into your clothes. It could like, you could be infected and not know it. So like why would you like not wear a mask? When you have no way of knowing whether you're supposed to be quarantined or not.
Yep. It's just a matter of precaution and safety, which in the end is what matters the most in these sort of situations.
Oh, it's people that have no really regard for people outside like their immediate family, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Like that don't care about their community, or like, that's like the people that aren't wearing it. That's in my opinion. It's like, or
Well,
you're just doing it, like you said, as a stubborn, anti-democrat thing, which really, what does it matter what your governor's party is,
Yeah. Tara was telling me how yesterday at her place of business, after the I don't want to call it a mandate because that's not really what it was, but after people were instructed to wear masks more often if able, she said that maybe 50% of people who came in and out of that store are wearing masks today. Fucking nobody. I guess because it was A, 4th of July, and B, a place that sells alcohol.
Yeah. I don't know. I always just keep. I have two bigger. But my security job gives out two different kinds of masks. One of them is just bigger and more comfortable. I keep that in my work jacket, which I use to like basically carry stuff, with me. So even I still keep it with me. Like, I keep them in there for like going to either job, and then I have two, the blue painter's masks that aren't as comfortable, but I just keep them in the Jeep, and it's like, oh, I'm going into a store, put the mask on. I come back and get in my car and drive again, I can take it off. Yep, it's that simple.
I have one in my car at all times.
Yeah, it's really that simple to do. So it's kind of like funny that people have such a hard time grasping.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't have to drive with it. Like you don't have to, unless you're driving with other people. Like there's reasons for it, but
yeah, it's frustrating to watch other people have less regard for safety than you do.
And I don't even really like people. That's the biggest part of all. Like, I'm not a huge fan of societies. I hate to call myself like a social Darwinist. But
we really do live in a society.
Yeah. Well, there is a real thing of like overpopulation on the earth and everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if we could lose some people, I wouldn't be completely against it. But like, of course, that sounds diabolical from like a humanities perspective. But
no, but I know exactly what you mean.
Like if the herd thins out a little bit, it would be good for everything.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like these naturally occurring like diseases and plagues and natural disasters, if we didn't intervene as much, I wonder like if that's not that the earth is sentient really, but I wonder if that's how like population was managed for so long, and then we advanced so much that we're able to curb that kind of natural, I would call it like the natural death toll almost,
Right, yeah. Because like almost 100 years ago, it was like 101, 102 years ago, we had the Spanish flu, which killed as few as 25 million and as many as 100 million people. Like, that's pretty substantial. By the numbers currently, we're at 500,000, like just a little over 500,000. So, like, it could be a lot worse. And also, like what you were saying with, like, thinning out the herd. If it happens, it happens. Can't help it. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like almost a lack of a sense of scale, like especially for the people who don't wear masks. Like they really only see things as far as their immediate vicinity. And that probably comes from like a place of privilege, Like you don't really need to have that struggle because you can, if the worst thing happens to you, you can get adequate medical care. Right. But
yeah,
like I think because like we have intervened so much with all these like plagues and natural disasters and stuff. I think that's generally because people don't like dying. So like
Oh yeah.
we want to like protect people just like as like humans, you know? Like since we
Yeah.
have the ability to. We
Right.
don't want our loved ones and friends and selves dying, and we don't want like other people's loved ones and selves dying because, you know, inherently as humans, we sort of care about each other. I
Or
mean,
at
like
least we're
strangers will
supposed
like
to.
help other strangers that they don't know, like
Yeah.
most of the time, unless they're just like a complete asshole. But that's beside the point. But like, you know,
No, I get you. This may seem a little bit backwards, but I promise you, this is actually true and has been proven. If I find some sources, I'll throw them in the links. But even though like there's this whole survival of the fittest thing, where only the strongest of species survive to continue that species, it's also true that if we let people who are like immunodeficient or immunocompromised or have certain diseases or are frail in general, like if we allow those people to live longer, then by proxy, we as a species will grow stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can make the weakest people continue to survive, then the species as a whole will continue to survive much more likely.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
it's about
reinforcing it from the back end.
yeah, it's not necessarily the strongest will survive. It's the most the ability to adapt will survive.
Right, exactly.
You know, so that's kind of what we as a species have going really well. Like if you look at, you know, like just like the development of morphine,
Right.
is a huge step, you know. And obviously all like the inoculations and stuff we can get now, which, you know, I'm not even going to get into the anti-vax crowd, but
Oh yeah.
that's the same. The only smarter than the flat earthers are that crowd. that's the level in my mind.
They'll
Yeah.
at least listen to one report instead of zero reports, even though that report was incredibly falsified. But I mean, what do flat earthers listen to? Nothing.
Yeah, you got to check out if you have a chance. There's a great documentary called Behind the Curve. I think it was on Netflix.
Okay.
That like these people, they're investigating the Flat Earth Society, and like this one guy who's a big celebrity in it is like literally asked the question. He literally says, "Well, if these scientists are proven wrong and the Earth isn't indeed flat, they'll lose their fame." And the interviewer was like, "Isn't that exactly what happened to you if like flat Earth is proved false?" And there's a deafening moment of silence,
Wow.
like where he becomes self-aware of his own position, that like the only reason you're famous is because of what you're saying, and if you stop saying that, you will not be famous anymore.
Wow.
Like it's a real moment of like cognitive like existence, where it's like this is the purpose you've dedicated your life to now, like this big. And there's this great test they do at the end too, where like the guy's trying to observe a curve on a horizon by putting like a viewing box at one area, and then like so however many yards away there's another area like a mirror, and he shines a light through, and if like there's a curve, the light on the arrow should be lower than the light where he's shining it from, like level wise. And it is every single time. There's an indication of a curve every single time, but he keeps redoing the experiment over and over again. I believe that's how the document. It was kind of like a fun documentary, but how it ends is like this guy's unable to prove that a curvature doesn't exist on the Earth. So it's just like, well, that's it. We've done all the investigation we need to.
Yeah,
what if the Earth is bowl shaped?
What if the Earth is a Dyson sphere?
What if it? Yeah. What if it's What if it is the Matrix?
I saw a thing recently about that where it was like, why would a computer need people batteries? Like what purpose does that serve?
No, that was, I mean, it was a really cool movie series and a really
absolutely.
cool sci-fi idea, but like it doesn't to need organic matter to survive is kind of a it creates a problem of like, how are you converting that matter to energy? Number one, and number two, like, as a computer, why would you not engineer that weakness out?
Right.
So that like you can live off like something generated naturally in the earth or like the sun or something,
Yeah.
like the most renewing energy source. But
You know what completely unexpected game explored that exact idea?
Huh.
Metroid Prime 3 Echoes, or not Echoes, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption
yeah,
for the Nintendo Wii was a game about how Samus Aran was invited to this this really big like Federation spaceship, and was like some general or guy was like, "Hey Samus, glad you could make it. Check out this organic supercomputer we have here. It's literally a living being, but it's also a computer." And she's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And he's like, "Now, there's one main flaw with this thing. Seems it's getting sick, so we can't use it." Just like... And you didn't think that wasn't going to be a problem in the first place when you built this thing.
yeah. I been listening to a lot of Bill Burr's podcasts lately. Love that guy. Great comedian. He has there's like a lot of compilations online. One of his like a conspiracy theory, and it like brings up a good point. He talks about like, and we're doing this like in this age too. We're engineering these artificial life forms and everything.
Uh-huh.
And robots and whatnot. But it's like people want to like for some reason give them feelings and other human characteristics. Like let's not do that. That's the beginning of Skynet, really. I actually saw one of the more recent Terminator movies. It's like where Skynet started as like a social platform, like similar to Facebook.
Oh.
And I was like, that's very good writing, actually. That of course a program that seeks to, preserve itself would decide the easiest way to do that is to destroy any threat on the outside.
But Rowles, what about Asimov's first law of robotics?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, it's just I think that's like a robot cannot harm a living being.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think well, logically it makes sense, but I think if the computer or AI is able to rewrite what it considers to be a human being, that really changes it. Like imagine a robot that like is made to kill zombies. So if, like it's a dead human being, but it's still a human being. Like you have to create that parameter. All of a sudden, it could say like, "Oh, this person is a member of the resistance. These are not human beings. We can destroy them." But that's
a huge can of worms right there.
Yeah, putting too much thought into. This isn't at all what I had planned to talk about, by the way. But
That's
I'm not
okay.
against it.
That's how it goes.
I've been reading a lot lately. I love having a job where, like, my downtime I can just read and write.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing a lot of, is writing.
Yeah, I'm gonna write my young adult high school fiction.
Yes. It's funny you should say that, because that's absolutely what I've been writing lately.
Yeah.
It's
basically gonna be a Digimon fan fiction, but I'm just gonna change the names and pull a 50 Shades of Grey on everybody's ass.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many stories have been born of fan fiction.
Oh, absolutely.
One of my, I haven't read it myself, but I have met the author of this series, and I have heard nothing but good things about it. It's the Witchland series, which is currently has 3 books and 1 compilation of short stories, written by Susan Dennard, or Susan Dennard. I'm not sure how she pronounces her last name. But Tara and I went to go see her, among other young adult authors, a couple of years back, and she's like, "Yeah, this series that I wrote, absolutely an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan fiction that I just modified to be like my love letter to it instead."
Oh yeah.
So like,
I was talking with my coworker on my evening shifts, or my 3 to 11s. He's a big creative guy too. Plays music, writes, reads, all that kind of stuff. So we've had many discussions about we were talking about Game of Thrones this particular day, and I said, I'm gonna start bringing the book in to read. I started reading the first book, but like every attempt I've made to like really put it into my schedule, it's been moved for whatever reason. I was into something else at the time, or what have you. But I watched the show up to a certain season, and then I watched. Like I said, I'm reading the first book here, and I said, with George Martin's how should I not ability, but his tendency, I guess would be the word, to take long to put out this work.
Oh yeah.
I hope it doesn't become a Franz Kafka situation, where it's like, this is your masterwork, but it has to be finished by your friend.
Oh yeah.
Like the whole Metamorphosis, there was, we know what happens to Gregor Samsa, but we don't know how it ends. But then his friend sat down and finished it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like you can tell a difference in the tone of writing just right away. So.
Yep. I mentioned it on an earlier podcast, but that's what happened to Robert Jordan of The Wheel of Time. He died of, I think, like a rare heart disease, and his biggest fan had to pick it up and finish it for him. I mean, like, most of it was already done anyway, so he didn't have a whole lot to like just do himself, but still.
I think it's easier to write based on another work, another world's characters, like fan fiction basically.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to write that because you're already dealing with established characters.
Right.
Because establishing a character can be the hardest thing in the world to do in a book. Based on previous things that I've written, for school and whatnot. It was just like, what is this guy about? Like, okay, well, let me think. I kind of like this character from this show and this character, so I'm going to try to kind of combine their traits that I like and write, that's my main character. So that's way easier than like, okay, well, it's almost like a fill in the blank thing. He is a blank, and he is blank, and his,
Yeah, no.
Everybody likes his blank.
That's, I mean, when you break it down to its most base parts, that's really how you create a character. I mean, honestly, if a person is written well, you don't have to throw in that many details, because if the suspension of belief is high enough, then the person reading will fill in all the gaps that you leave open.
I mean, it also is cool if you can, trying to be a writer, the thing that I'm going to try to do the most is make characters that people can identify with. Because right now, like I said, I'm reading Game of Thrones, and I am loving, not that I didn't like him in the show, but I'm loving the character of King Robert Baratheon in the first book.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is me as a king.
just the most indulgent, bad-mouthed guy.
This is me. This is my Skyrim character. My big Nord in the heavy armor with a warhammer, storming this basilica, taking over, and then it's like, oh, now I'm the king. I'm just gonna sit back and eat my food and get fat, and it's like, this is my character. I love this man. Like,
exactly. I wonder if he was based in any way off of actual George R.R. Martin's personality. Because to quote the epic rap battles of history that he was on, he LARPed his Santa Claus ass through Vietnam. So, like...
yeah.
I think that transitions pretty nicely into something that Jess alluded to me before we started. I was hoping you could talk about that, because I want to know about this thing that you have to talk about.
Yeah, I'm really interested in talking about it. I was gonna say something else. It's escaped me. But real quick, when we were like discussing like character development and stuff, I think I read somewhere on Tumblr that's like in the halfway point between like motivational speaking and writing advice is like, as a human, as a character, you're basically just like a culmination of all your own personal experiences. And what makes you who you are is what you take away from them. So like if you want to like write a realistic character, you need to like almost plot out their life, give them some kind of like event. Like descriptors work just fine, but like you need to come at it from an angle of if they were placed in this situation, how would they like go about it? What would they do to like further themselves in the plot
Right.
line?
Yeah, basically answering the question, what do they want? And also, a thing that I think it's Pixar that does, or somebody, I'll have to find this later if I can, basically, like, the key to a good plot in a story is figure out what your character wants, and then make them deal with the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also, not related to writing per se, but I'm in a few like movie and TV groups with a few friends on Facebook where we like every day like your favorite character from this, or like a lot of those like 30-day challenges describe movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of interaction. But one post was really great, which I thought this applies to in the writing world to if you're writing like a book series or you like are more, or if you're better at writing like a short story. It was if you want to focus on the world that you're creating, you should write a TV show. If you want to focus on the characters in that world, you write a movie. And I was like,
okay.
I mean, unless it's a series like your Star Wars or like a series of movies,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're gonna really want more time to build. Oh, I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. It wasn't. If you're focusing on the plot, you go with the movie, not necessarily the characters.
Right.
Like you're like, I want to tell this specific story based on this is the world, and here's a bunch of stories that are going to happen in it at once.
Right.
Kind of a Lord of the Rings type thing, you know, jump between. Meanwhile, in the Forest of Ents.
Right. Meanwhile, back at their lair. But no, that's exactly right. I mean, that's why science fiction and fantasy rarely takes the form of a standalone novel. It usually have to do a series, because, like, how are you supposed to write a full novel that doesn't go on for pages and pages and pages if you want to explore an entire world that you have created?
Yeah. That's kind of the genre that has to do that, like more so than any other work.
Pretty
Because
much.
like, if you're gonna set things in an alternate universe, like you need to define the rules of that universe, or otherwise it's gonna be a bad. Like in the old Star Wars, the Force was always defined as like this mystical thing that's outside of time, and you can use it, but you can't like overuse it, or it's just like the slight thing that exists. Like you can't use it to like end a war. You can use it to influence people, you know? But then they're like, all of a sudden, midichlorians.
Sure, why not?
And then all of a sudden, you know, in the new films, it's like, it can do all these other, like, by the way, the Force had all these other powers. We just never defined them before. It's like, oh, George didn't write this. Like,
oh,
at least,
George is up to his old tricks again.
No, you can make fun of his writing for the prequels as much as you want, but at least there was a coherent theme.
Right.
It wasn't different directors on each film, you know?
Yeah. Like, I know people bash on the prequels a lot because it's fun and it's entertaining to do so. But like the ending of Revenge of the Sith, it's just the fucking saddest thing. It's so sad.
There's a good. What I always liked was the worst one, probably Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
There's that really good dialogue that Anakin has, and it's one that I like to do, along with like to use an example from like Final Fantasy X, Seymour's, you know, his whole thing about killing the Ronsos. If you remember that scene, like there are just scenes that you like to do in your own voice with your own inflection, where Anakin's, you know, is like. When he talks about the sand people taking his mom, he's like, I killed them, and not just the men, but the women and the children. They're animals, and I hate them. Like, to change the way it's delivered is so cool, but it's like the acting wasn't. I think he's an okay actor. I don't think the direction was there. Like, and then people are surprised to see. If I can quote Kevin Smith, people are surprised to see that like Darth Vader was an emo teenage boy, and it's like, of course he was. That's how the greatest villain always gets made. They have a sad boy phase before they get violent.
Yep. All right, I'm sorry, Jess. We totally cut you off from what you were going to talk about, but go ahead.
That's totally fine. I wanted to talk about this anyway. Basically, one of my friends was having me take a personality test just for fun earlier this week, and it was like really like in depth with like 12 different like categories and like, or no, it was 4 different categories with like 12 options like per category, and that you were like some combination of these things that like represents your personality. And I was just thinking like there's a lot of like series in fiction that like handle magic, like their systems of magic in the world where it sort of manifests differently for everyone depending on like your personality and stuff. And I just think that's really cool because like it makes rules and it follows all the rules, but it can also make new rules like whenever it wants. You know?
So what's your example for that? Because I know you explained that to me before, and I was like, yeah, I agree. Give example, please.
I would
think I have
love
a few then as
yeah.
well.
If you have any more examples, I'd love to hear them. But
Absolutely.
like not to be like that person or anything, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Okay.
Starting in part 3 in the advent of stands, that's effectively like how they work. Is like a major life-changing event happens to you, and this like mystical like force like becomes like available to you that you can use, and
Okay.
it's sort of like defined by your experiences and your thoughts and personality effectively, and you like use them for killing people or whatever.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind based on what you just said there, the magic system in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
The whole thing that's behind that is like 1 in a million people are born with the spark, which is your ability to be able to travel between worlds. But your spark only activates after you've had a traumatic event of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And like you have the 5 colors that have a loose basis of personality type, but it goes even more in depth than that. Because like you can not only have different subclasses of those colors, but you can also have combinations of those colors, and you can have all sorts of different things that come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
What I was thinking of was, I was going to say how I can't think of the right word, but how not convenient, but how interesting, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. That my examples are also anime related.
Apropos.
The ones that I thought of, not how like different abilities manifest. I thought immediately of My Hero Academia and Naruto, because it's like, anyone there's like in Naruto, anyone can learn certain abilities, like if you have the aptitude for it. But then there are the bloodline abilities, like only as in only in the family, like the Sharingan for the Uchihas, and it's like, and that is those bloodline abilities do reflect the personalities of the characters. Like the one from the Hyuga family, it's either Byakugan or Bakugan, but one of those is another kid's show.
Bakugan, I think.
Okay, that's Byakugan then. It's like I'm a huge fan of the character of Neji, but it's like, of course, the ability that gives his eyes like the insight of like the chakra of his enemies and how to like effectively counter them from anywhere is like, of course, that would belong to the guy who's like the genius character. Like the ability to plan ahead. I think like the Uchiha, they're revered as a great ninja clan because their ability to basically copy their opponent, like that is so useful in any battle and like, for sabotage and whatnot.
Right.
And then in My Hero Academia, the idea I had was, everyone has their quirks and their different powers, but like, of course, Bakugo, like the angry asshole but hero character, has the exploding power. Like the one who has the anger problems has explosions. The one that's like the one guy that's like the class rep who's like super quick to act and everything. He has the speed. It's just like their personalities are built from the mutation they kind of inherited from their parents or like whatever just like formed in them. And then to go off triggering events, like the big example for me is Dragon Ball Z, where it's like everyone who became a Super Saiyan, like there's a different reason for, like Goku because Frieza killed his best friend and like injured, another friend of his and was going to kill his son. Like he finally transcends the legend. Vegeta out of pure effing jealousy alone of Goku, which was why I love Vegeta. Trunks because in the future because the androids killed his mentor Gohan in front of him. Like there's always an inciting incident of like anger and stuff. It doesn't just happen. The least effective one was like Gohan's in the present time because he just kind of transformed while training with his dad. But to be fair to him, Goku was kicking the shit out of him in the time chamber too. He's like, "You gotta dodge." What? You gotta dodge. What? Get mad, Gohan! Hey, and he's like, "I fucking hate you." Transformation. I might be filling in the blanks of my memory there.
I've actually only seen one legitimate episode of Dragon Ball Z that wasn't the Team 4-Star.
Oh yeah, you should just watch the abridged. It's hilarious. It's
yeah,
great.
but I only have seen one, and that was where Goku landed on the very tiny planet, and with the like extreme amount of gravity. And he's trying to find some master, like the blue guy with the sunglasses.
Yeah, Kinkai.
Yeah, but he finds the monkey first, and he's like, "Are you my master?" And the monkey starts running around with his arms up, and he's like, "Okay, I guess I have to do this." Oh man, this is quite a workout.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that's what's great about that show is if you watch Dragon Ball at all or read the manga, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
They're in the world tournament, and one guy's like ability is to hawk loogies at people. Like Toriyama is it's almost like slapstick Three Stooges, but with martial arts. Sometimes it's great.
That's amazing.
That's two of my worlds brought together.
I consume a lot of media, but anime is not one of them, and I feel like there's a lot I'm missing out on.
Oh yeah, there's a few shows you should definitely get in. I mean,
I think you would like My Hero Academia.
I've heard good things.
I think you would like it, especially for like the way it handles its characters.
Yeah.
Where like, it's a complete asshole to them, but like the character development is like pretty like it makes them go through shit, and they grow from it.
It has a lot of my favorite moment, and like an anime is really good about this, and so are video games. Mm-hmm. What I like to call the big damn hero moment.
Okay.
Where it's like everything is going wrong. Like to use My Hero Academia, it's like when the villains are attacking the kids in the training center in the first season. It's like everything is going wrong. All Might's not able to keep up with this villain, but then they're like, "I can kill you at 100%." He's like, "Oh, do you only think I can use 100% of my power?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, what's going on here?" And he's just like, all of a sudden, "Oh, I'm going to fight at 300%. It's like, wait, you can't do that. Can he do that? He can't do that. And then the music swells and everything gets awesome and the hero saves the day,
Yeah, I'm all about that sort of thing.
Like, Bleach has another good one where Ichigo saves Rukia, like, when she's about to be executed. They do a really good job in the anime. She, like, accepts her fate. She's like, I'm at peace with the fact that I'm going to die here. And this spear that's made of like the souls of 1,000 people is ready to pierce her, but then he stops and blocks it with his sword from the back, so like he's not even facing the camera.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, oh, you're being an extra badass now. And then like the guitar lick kicks in, and I'm like, yeah, buddy.
Yes, it's happening. It's happening.
I love that kind of stuff, man. That's a good. That transformative moment happens in a lot of those moments too, like where you learn so much more about a character in that moment, and they reach this level of power they didn't know they had. Again, a big trope in anime, reaching this hidden power they didn't know.
Yeah, I'm totally going to toot my own horn here, so stop me if you've heard this one before. The story that I'm writing, which is a fantasy series. Currently going to try and separate over 5 volumes. I'm trying, even though it's a fantasy series and world building and magic systems are very important, what I'm trying to do is kind of put those things to the side because what's more important is character development to me. And I I have a lot of characters who, go on your typical journey together, and I wanted to have them all interact with each other, and there absolutely is one of those, like, big dick energy hero moments. Without going into too much detail, there's a threat to the world, and everybody, and, like, these select few people have to go and try and stop it. And they have to go and basically, like, there's a couple of them at first, and they have to go find the rest of the gang that they need to stop the problem. And so, like, there's this scene where, like, all the evil monster people are attacking a city, and they're like, ah, crap, this is really, really bad. And then the person that they needed to find shows up at exactly the right moment and is like, step aside, fools, watch this. And, like, just, like, ends the problem that quickly. So, like, that's the sort of thing I want to try and portray in this story. Because I absolutely agree with you. Those are, like, some of the most, like, yes, do it! Man stuff! Just kind of thing. Like, you just want to kick a chair. When you get to those parts.
There's actually one of my favorite anime manga series, Rurouni Kenshin. The main character's like master. He only shows up like in the one battle from time to time, and every time he goes there, like he destroys the enemy he's fighting. Like, who are like these are like the 10 most deadliest swordsmen in Japan or whatever, you know. But like, he handles it with no problem. Like, the writer even said like, I couldn't bring him back because he just beats like I've already established his character as like he has the style that Kenshin has, like this, you know, the sword that's faster than lightning type thing. But he's also a 6'7" giant muscled up guy. So he's not gonna suffer from any, you know, like it breaks down Kenshin's body as he gets older, but like this guy doesn't have that problem because he's just, you know, yoking up when he's not sword fighting. So, he's like, I can't use this character anymore, which is, you know, the only drawback to like writing a character like that, I think.
Right.
Is you have to, you know. Now, if it's a situational thing, that's all different. You can have him be like, I don't know. It almost reminds me of like the Green Ranger from Power Rangers at the beginning.
Okay.
You know, it's like, oh, we can't fight. Well, this one guy is going to show up with his own giant robot and save the day.
Oh man, I know almost nothing about Power Rangers, but there was this one cartoon that I saw a long time ago when I might have even been in 8th grade when I saw it. Might have been later than that, but it was in the days of Newgrounds, when Newgrounds still was pretty popular.
Relevant.
Oh yeah.
And relevant. It was this bizarre cartoon, and if anybody can remember this for me, because I don't remember what it was called, that'd be amazing. It was it was Power Rangers crossed with Thomas the Tank Engine, in which some evildoer, some supervillain, created these monsters to duke it out in the city. Meanwhile, the Power Rangers go off and go and find every other version of Power Rangers from every other alternate universe, including a series of steam engines, to go and help them take them down. It's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, but it was really good. Like, it was goofy and stupid, but I loved it.
What's crazy about that show is like there is a good continuity for like the first 6 seasons of the show, where like they go into space and like Zordon has to die so they can purify like Linkar covered it on his channel, and it's very interesting. Like Hulk and Skull have these developments and everything. Like the characters that come back are developing, and it's like, who would have thought, you know, bringing over a show like that, that's what, like, people actually cared that were involved in it, and that's how you make a good series or a good thing, by actually caring of what you're developing or adapting, you know.
Right.
Like anyone can just write a TV show, like a sitcom or something, but it's like when you actually give a shit about it is when it becomes like legendary.
Right, yeah.
I'm all about it.
The only
Brings
thing I
to
know
mind-
about Power Rangers is
go ahead.
I saw like a clip or something from like an old original Power Rangers where like the bad guy was like an Italian chef and he baked all the Power Rangers into a pizza.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
And then and they did something like I distinctly remember like they like break out of the pizza and like bake him into his own pizza or something like that. And they all like pose, and then there's a police officer there, and he's just like pose.
Yeah.
I'll find it if I
Power
can,
Rangers.
but
Okay.
it was
It's,
just I'll put it in the links.
This is what happens when you develop a Sentai series from Japan. You know, you have these kind of enemy. Like,
Nope.
that's why I guess, you know, we talked about anime. I mean, I guess that's why like I love a lot of things that come out of that country, because it's the narrative rules of fiction are so much more expanded than it seems to be.
It's
like,
so
yeah.
extra.
It's like we're gonna make it it's so defined and so its own universe that you're not going to be able to distinguish it from anything else.
But that's great.
Like-
I mean, sometimes you want Western literature where it's like everything's can be gritty and realistic and like dark.
Believable.
And sometimes you want just over the top, goofy, but like just it makes you feel great when you when you watch or read it.
One of my favorite, well, I mean, it's one that I have tattooed on me. The Gundam series, well, that's the thing, because Gundam is such a huge thing, but there's different universes within the universe. But the one that has the most stories, the UC Century, Tomino, the writer of the books, and then the executive developer, like he has the nickname of Kill 'Em All Tomino, because
okay.
Yes, it's battles with robots in space and colonies and
Right.
expansion and futuristic warfare, really sci-fi. But at the same time, the main thrust of it is like, this is the reality of war. Like, your main character has just as good of a chance to die or to like have his mind fried, or you know, just any other character. It's like rules that like other conventions don't really break into, where it's like, you know, you watch an anime, like 9 times out of 10, the main character is never gonna die. There's gonna, especially if it's like a shonen series, they're always gonna find another power or something, you know, which is both good and bad. But then it's, like, I don't know a lot of Western stories that have character that death is permanent. Like, you think you lose Gandalf, but then he just rides back in on a white horse.
Yep.
Which is great. Don't get me wrong. I love Gandalf.
So that was
all
another one of
about
those moments where you're like, and you like start tearing up a little bit, like, yes, he's back. Like in the actual books, like the who's with them? It's Gimli and Aragorn and like they actually like bow down to him because they're so shocked that he's there.
Oh yeah. Well, they developed like him and Saruman and what's the nature wizard? I forget your name.
Radagast.
Thank you, Radagast. like these. Again, this is one of those where you have to look into the. We talked about like world building, where you have to look into the extended world of like the Silmarillion and all that to make sense of it. But like the wizard class is like essentially ascended above humanity. I'm not sure where you would put them in
they're
the
like angels.
Stories of power.
Yeah, they're like the angels.
Yeah, I thought they were something like that. And then I did deep dive research after reading the book series again on Sauron, like where it's like he was an apprentice blacksmith of the dark scion of evil. I'm messing up the characterizations here.
Yeah.
But the dark scion of of the ancient being, like stuff before humanity even existed, he was there, but he was like just inherited the evil and greed from someone. And they pulled a Ganondorf essentially and sealed him away.
Yeah, let
You
me
know.
pull a Stephen Colbert on you, and
Go ahead.
the evil guy was Melkor,
Yeah.
who was one of like the original gods, and then he was like, you know what? I don't like what Super Wizard God is doing. I want to do my own thing over here. And Super Wizard Guy is like, you can't do that. And like threw him over to like a part of the world where he couldn't get to anything. Because he wanted the flame imperishable.
They put him in the like the faraway lands or whatever, right? You know,
they put him in the stay over here box.
Okay.
And then they put him in the box.
They put him in the box in the gym you have to go to when you get hit by the ball in Battle Ball.
Yes, exactly. They threw him in the penalty box and it's like, here, wait out your time until you're done, which is all of eternity. And he's like, okay, I'm just gonna find somebody else to take my place since I can't do anything. So he grabbed some dude from out of nowhere. Like I think he was another angel, or like a wizard type person.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, you're gonna do everything on my behalf. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. And that's where Sauron came from.
It's almost like it's funny how that disagreement is like the inciting incident for everything. Because I just brought up Gundam, and it's like the whole thing that started the 1 year war of the original series was like Side 3 were basically this group of colonies around the Earth were like, hey, we want our independence from the Earth Federation. The Earth Federation's like, no, we have to. Everyone's part of this group. We're keeping everything together, and that's how we keep track of everybody. We're like, okay, then we're going to drop our satellite onto Australia.
As you do.
They dropped the whole colony into Australia, and it's like the one game for the Dreamcast that was great. Like, there's a Gulf in Australia now because of this, and it's like, okay, that disagreement. It's not to get too in depth because it's a huge, timeline, but they basically are space Nazis. The one guy said like, and this is in the English broadcast back in the day on Toonami when I was in middle school. I saw this.
Oh
The
yeah.
guy's even like, oh, Adolf Hitler is an interesting character, and I was like, you don't say. Okay, you're the bad guy. It's pretty easy to tell. And there are still people who are like, Zeon did nothing wrong. Like, they did.
Oh boy.
They really did. So that's why I have the Earth Federation tattoo instead of the Zeon tattoo,
Yeah.
Like, I want to show my love for this series, but I'm not going to be a Nazi sympathizer either.
Well, listen, that's
Make a
great
choice.
and all, but all I really care about is what happened to Big Zam.
Alright, well, the Big Zam was piloted by General Dozel, the brother of the guy in charge, and he fought on a giant asteroid called Axis, and that's kind of where the war ended. The Gundam kind of flew in and, with help of his friends, kind of blew up everybody.
So, like, is the original Gundam series just a giant World War II allegory?
Kinda. A lot of anime is actually. Yes.
I mean, World War II was kind of a big deal for Japan.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No. It definitely has that to it. The 1979 series, but if you want to watch it, I recommend there's a 3 DVD movie collection that I'm sure you can stream online. That 3 like 2-hour movies essentially tell all the major plot of the original, which is a lot less intimidating than a 50 episode series or 48, however many it was. But I think a lot of it does come from that. That was a big deal. It's getting out aggression in a creative way, I guess.
Okay, so we're gonna need to end off here soon, but I have one story that I have to tell because I think you guys will find it very entertaining.
Right before you do that, real
Okay,
quick,
go ahead.
I just want you to know I totally found the Power Rangers where they got baked into a pizza. I'm putting it in the
Nice.
links right now.
Do it.
There you go.
Fantastic.
All right,
Okay,
go on.
so, I'm gonna save the actual story that comes from the story for another week, but suffice it to say, I got my hands on some cola nuts, which are a tropical nut that that is found usually in South America and West Africa, and that's what they originally used to make cola, the drink, and by proxy using the leaves to make cocaine, but that's something unrelated. So I got these cola nuts because I was like, you know what would be fun? Try and make my own soda. So that's what I did. I found a recipe where you take cola nuts, you chop them up into little pieces, and keep in mind the way they look. They're like these like ping pong ball sized purple or white colored fleshy things that kind of have the consistency of potatoes. But you chop them up into little pieces and you boil them. And then the two major components to making cola is not just that, but also citrus and spices. So, like, the things you would typically expect in a, like pumpkin spice, where you have allspice and nutmeg and cinnamon. You mix all that together, you boil that. Meanwhile, you take the cola that you're boiling and you add, like, lemon, lime, and orange zest and some juice. You boil that with a shit ton of sugar, make some syrup, put them together, boil them again, and then drain everything out. And you get this mystical liquid that's like oily, kinda. Oily and sticky, that you have to mix with water, specifically club soda, in order to make it happen.
And then you change your name to Heisenberg. Sell it to pay for your cancer treatment.
I've secretly delivered how to make meth in that story. But, so, I was doing this as a complete novice with no prior information. All I did was look up a couple recipes and kind of combine them. So, like, everything went way better than expected. I basically tripled the recipe since I had way more cola nuts than I needed. So I used a whole bunch of sugar and all these spices and all this zest and everything, and I put it all together, not realizing that I added way too much citrus. I mean, like, it would have been fine to have maybe, like, half a cup's worth of zest. I had, like, 3 cups of zest. And when it was all said and done, and I finally boiled everything together, and then I drained it all off, and I had this oil, like the syrup that you would use to mix with the club soda to make the soda properly. When I tasted it, I was like, wait a minute. This is not Coke. This is not Coke, or Coke adjacent. Turns out, because I used so much citrus, I accidentally made Mountain Dew. I mean, it tastes exactly like Mountain Dew, but without the acidity. Jess, you'll know what I'm talking about. Rowles, you might. You know when you have, like, a sore throat or something and you mix lemon and honey together to make, like, a tea? It tastes exactly like that. And it's great.
Like bubbly.
Yeah, it's great. Like, all you need... Like, I ended up making several cups worth of this stuff, and you really only need half a cup for every cup. You only need like a quarter of a cup of syrup for every cup of club soda. So I've probably gone through half of one container out of the 2 that I have. So if either of you want one, you are more than welcome to have it, because I'm not going to go through all this myself.
I take one without sugar. I basically eliminated that from my diet. So.
Well, this is like sugar times 10. It's very sweet by itself.
I'm sure, like, if you, like, water it down enough and, like, use only, like, a little bit of the syrup, like a tablespoon even, or maybe 2. Then,
I mean,
like,
despite the fact that I kind of screwed it up with the proportions, it's extremely refreshing with ice, I gotta say. But anyway, maybe I'll post the link to the recipes I followed in the links. But yeah, that's my story of how I accidentally made Mountain Dew. Alright, so, yeah.
Oh, no, I was gonna say a similar thing. I have discovered I have a lot more friends making their own, like, homebrew beer than I thought.
That's pretty sweet.
Even selling it at, like, the one place in town, Maxie's, like, my friend now does that as his living. I'm like, wait a minute, when did this start? You know?
That's pretty cool, though.
It's the 20s.
Yeah.
It is the 20s. We are now in the time where overindulgence and drinking alcohol secretly is now, once again, the order of the day.
Woohoo!
Oh, I don't think it'll go as far as prohibition, but
I hope not.
that would be interesting to any sort of similarity there would be. I mean, remember when they were rationing out the toilet paper and whatnot?
Yeah.
I still I bought this huge pack that of like Angel Soft or something, and like there's still half of it left from Walmart. So it's like I didn't even need any at the time, but it's like I better buy a pack just in case.
Right.
But it's like me stockpiling is like buying a pack that like a family goes through in a month, and it's just like, all right, I'm gonna sit on this for a while.
Hey.
That and paper towels were another, and cleaning supplies. Then like every week there was something else, but
Yep.
the toilet paper was always. I was gonna take a picture at Walmart. I'm gonna go grocery shopping later probably, and I'm gonna see if it's like completely restored. I'm just gonna probably upload it with a video of like Link restoring Hyrule after beating Ganondorf. It's like toilet paper's growing again, the sun's shining, the birds are singing, peace reigns on Hyrule. You know,
Fantastic. Love that.
the Master Swords will sleep again forever, but it didn't. It was only the game after Link to the Past. I had to wake it up again.
Then Navi goes and fucks off somewhere.
Well, nobody cares.
Well, that gave us Majora's Mask. That gave me my
Yeah.
favorite game ever, so I'm all for it.
You got Tattle and Tail instead, which were way more interesting anyway.
Yeah.
They were
There's
characters.
actually a good theory I read about that
Mhm.
real quick that like that universe is destined to die. So the fact that Link restores everything and then he's basically condemning people to live through their own 3-day hell experience over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they said like the ending clearly is like dawn of a new day and like all the plot holes, literally almost every single plot hole is resolved.
Right.
In the credits, and it's like they still want to do that fatalist time theory nonsense. They tried to pull that with a few other series too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like there's a Final Fantasy X-3 audio CD where it's like, oh, Sid might be coming back anyway. It's like, wait a minute.
Hey, hold on a second. I thought we broke the chain. Come on.
We literally had 2 stories about this.
Just kidding.
Whatever sells tickets, I guess.
Yes. All right. So on that note, we're gonna wrap this whole episode up. Once again, what a great series of conversations that were totally unrelated, that just ended up weaving together. It's great. I love it. That's how it do.
We just went like, I love it talking about like creativity and storytelling and stuff like this.
Yeah.
For as long about literally everything.
Yes.
So,
folks listening at home, this podcast has everything in it. Literally everything. Maybe that's that. You know what? That's the title of this episode. This podcast has everything in it.
Literally everything. The podcast.
Yes, there you go.
What's great is I didn't even have to go to like any of the things I wrote down on like my note card. Of like, I mean, the one I was gonna like, the Cool Cat thing I was gonna delay anyway. But it's like, we could have had like another, let's rank them weekly debate on this or that kind of thing. But hey. None of my topics are time sensitive, so that just means more content later,
Yes, and I love it. I'm all for it. So, we're gonna wrap up this episode of Let's Regroup. Thank you for joining us, for myself, Casey, and also Jess and Rowles.
Goodbye.
Bye.
You're welcome, Internet.